Racism victim? That's what many people called Elgin Baylor after he filed a lawsuit against Los Angeles Clippers owner Donald Sterling in 2009. Baylor claimed he faced racial discrimination during his 22 years as the team's general manager. He said Sterling ran the team with a plantation mentality. But when the case went to court in 2011, a jury ruled against Baylor. They rejected all his claims. The media painted him as a bitter old man, making false accusations. His reputation took a hit. People said he was playing the race card. But here's what they didn't tell you about Elgin Baylor's story. Elgin Baylor wasn't a victim. He was a quiet revolutionary who fought American racism for nearly 90 years. His life tells the real story of how racism evolved in America, from the locked gates of segregated playgrounds to the boardrooms of corporate America. And by the end of his story, everyone would know he was telling the truth all along. Born in 1934, Baylor grew up in Washington, D.C. during the height of segregation. The nation's capital was deeply divided by race. While some streetcars and libraries were integrated on paper, segregation was the harsh reality everywhere else. Theaters, restaurants, hotels, and recreational facilities were all segregated. Young Baylor lived near a city recreation center, but was banned from using it because he was black. The swimming pool, softball fields, and basketball courts were all off limits. Police even put chain locks on the gates around the basketball court so black kids couldn't sneak in after hours. Older neighborhood kids would sometimes break in at night to play by whatever dim light they could find. But mostly, Baylor and his friends were stuck playing stickball in the streets. Because of this exclusion, Baylor didn't learn basketball formally until he was a teenager at Phelps Vocational High School. Even then, segregation meant his high school team could only play against other all-black schools like Armstrong, Cardozo, and Dunbar. His athletic world was as limited as his social world. Pretty ironic for a player who would later be nicknamed Rabbit for his fast, unstoppable game. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Elgin Baylor's incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what other untold sports stories you'd like to hear about. Despite these barriers, Baylor's talent couldn't be contained. On February 3, 1954, playing for Spingarn High School, he scored 63 points in a single game. This shattered the previous D.C. area record of 52 points. But here's where the story gets interesting. The previous record holder was a white player named Jim Wexler. When Wexler set his record, the Washington Post and other newspapers gave him major coverage. But when Baylor broke that record with an even more spectacular performance, the media barely mentioned it. This wasn't an accident. White-controlled newspapers consistently ignored the achievements of black players in their schools. They created a parallel, undervalued universe where black excellence was either invisible or treated as second-rate. Media coverage was the key to turning athletic achievement into college opportunities. By minimizing Baylor's historic game, the media was actively suppressing his future prospects. The consequences were real. Despite being named the first African-American on the prestigious All-Metropolitan team, major local universities didn't recruit Baylor heavily. Schools like the University of Maryland and George Washington University were still years away from integrating their basketball programs. Having had enough of segregated schools, Baylor turned down offers from historically black colleges. The limited options available to black talent forced him into an act of pure determination. He accepted a scholarship from the College of Idaho to play football, a sport he'd never played, just to find a way out. Eventually, Baylor made his way to professional basketball, where he became a true innovator. In an era when basketball was played horizontally on the ground, Baylor took the game airborne. He was the first athlete to truly play above the rim. His supernatural body control let him suspend himself in the air, improvise, and score from impossible angles. His game was a mesmerizing blend of slashing drives and springboard jump shots that teammates called unstoppable. This vertical style wasn't just athletic innovation, it was artistic liberation. For someone raised behind locked gates and segregated lines, his airborne play represented transcendence of those limitations. It was a new language of movement and freedom that permanently changed basketball's culture. Over his 14-year career with the Lakers, he averaged 27.4 points and 13.5 rebounds per game. He scored 71 points in a single game and still holds the NBA Finals single-game scoring record with 61 points. But Baylor's defiance wasn't limited to the court. On January 16, 1959, during his rookie season, he staged one of sports history's most significant but underappreciated protests. The Minneapolis Lakers were in Charleston, West Virginia, for an exhibition game when their hotel refused to house Baylor and his two black teammates. A hotel clerk bluntly told the coach, "This is a nice, respectable hotel, and we can't take the colored boys." The team found another hotel, but then a local restaurant also refused to serve the black players. Baylor's response was powerful and immediate. He refused to play. He wouldn't be entertainment for a city that denied his basic humanity. His explanation became legendary. "I'm a human being. I'm not an animal put in a cage and let out for the show." When asked if he worried about being fined, he was resolute. He would have made the same decision even if it cost his whole year's salary. After retirement, Baylor became the Clippers' general manager in 1986, one of the very few African Americans in such a high-ranking NBA position. He even won Executive of the Year in 2006 after assembling a rare playoff team. But this achievement masked a troubling reality. According to Baylor's lawsuit, owner Donald Sterling operated with what Baylor called a plantation mentality. Why did Baylor stay for 22 years? The answer reveals his quiet heroism. First, opportunities for black executives were extremely rare in the 1980s. With a family to support, the Clippers' job was his best option. But more importantly, his lawyers argued he endured the hostile environment for a bigger cause. In an industry with few African Americans in executive roles, his presence was a crucial foothold. He was accepting victimization so other African Americans could eventually reach similar positions. This was protest through presence. By staying despite the alleged hostility, he occupied a space few other African Americans could access. His endurance became a long, quiet act of resistance, proving black leadership could persist under difficult conditions. When Baylor filed his lawsuit in 2009, he faced major legal obstacles. The court ruled that evidence of Sterling's previous housing discrimination settlement couldn't be used. This crippled Baylor's ability to show a pattern of racist behavior. The defense focused on the Clippers' losing record, arguing poor performance justified his dismissal. Facing a weakened case, Baylor's team withdrew the racial discrimination claims. In March 2011, a jury unanimously ruled against Baylor on all remaining claims. The verdict hinged on a crucial legal distinction. The jury found that Sterling had never directed racist remarks personally at Baylor. In his deposition, when asked if Sterling had made a racist statement directly to him, Baylor replied, "Not that I can recall." While Baylor described a pervasive atmosphere of racism, the legal system demanded specific, provable acts of bias. Baylor's legal defeat seemed to confirm the narrative that his claims were false. But 3 years later, everything changed. In April 2014, TMZ released audio recordings of Donald Sterling in a racist tirade with his girlfriend. Sterling told her not to bring black people, including Magic Johnson, to Clippers games. The public backlash was immediate and overwhelming. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver banned Sterling for life, fined him $2.5 million, and forced the sale of the team. Media outlets immediately revisited Baylor's 2009 lawsuit, now seeing it in prophetic light. The allegations dismissed in court were suddenly viewed as ignored warnings from a man telling the truth. Baylor broke his silence in an interview with Anderson Cooper. He said he felt justice had been served, but his vindication wasn't triumphant. It was a somber affirmation of painful truth he'd carried for decades. "Now they know what Donald is like," he said, "and the things I said before about Donald are absolutely true." Elgin Baylor's life wasn't two separate stories, but one continuous struggle for dignity and equality. The bigotry that locked him out of basketball courts as a teenager was directly connected to the systemic racism that marginalized him as an executive. His 1959 protest in Charleston and his court battle 50 years later defended the same principle, that a black man's humanity isn't contingent on his utility as entertainer or employee. His story reveals how American racism evolved from obvious legal segregation to subtle corporate discrimination. But the underlying message remained the same. Baylor fought this battle with the same courage and grace that defined his revolutionary playing style. He left a legacy that challenges us to see beyond the highlights and understand the full measure of a man who played the long game against prejudice. That's the real story of Elgin Baylor. Not a victim, but a quiet revolutionary whose warnings were validated when it became impossible to deny the truth. If this story opened your eyes to a different side of sports history, hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories that reveal the deeper truths behind the games we love.